Real Enigmas and Theories is back again with another video. Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the tree like they just don't care. Nah, all kidding aside. Well, maybe some here and there. Let's get into this esoteric breakdown for episode 303. But before we do, go on ahead and hit that like and share to let the world know that we're here. And get ready to hop in the comments with your thoughts and questions. Let's cook. Last year, I did a video about the timepiece and broken glass, where I referenced Sarah's story about the broken glass, Tien Chen cutting her hand and Sarah helping her up, also Jade using the broken pieces of glass to figure out the symbol, Tabby passing through the glass at the lighthouse, and the broken glass on the reflector panes of the spotlight fixture itself. Now we have Tabby finding the bracelet in Henry's car, just like in Frumlin, questioning the reality of where she is, just like in Frumlin, and also cutting her hand on the broken glass like Miss Lou. Tabby started to doubt her surroundings after cutting her finger and finding the bracelet. Glass is often associated with clarity and transparency, and in this case, it could represent a disruption of perception or even her understanding of what's going on, hence the name Shatter for the first episode. Her need to understand could be overwhelming, and the broken glass is symbolic of a shattered perception, the clear vision being shattered, if you will. This could lead to confusion or disillusionment. In many cultures, breaking the glass represents some sort of spiritual disturbance. Even in voodoo and hoodoo practices, whole bottles and broken glass can be used to create traps for containing or repelling spirits. Broken glass might be buried around the perimeter of a property to create a spiritual barrier. Collecting shards of glass in a rag, like we see Sarah doing right here, but then running those shards underwater, is a way to undo bad luck or bad fortune. The broken glass can also represent the fragility of life and happiness. Even in Jewish weddings, the groom breaks a glass to remind of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, and it also symbolizes new beginnings. That reference makes me think about something Donna said to Boyd about getting their pound of flesh.
I miss Tien too. And believe me, I do not want us to not go out there and get our pound of flesh. Go out there and get our pound of flesh.
That phrase comes from the Shakespeare play, The Merchant of Venice, where the character Shylock demands a literal pound of flesh from a merchant, Antonio, as repayment of debt. That Shakespearean reference reminds me of the play Hamlet, where the ghost of King Hamlet appears to the prince, kind of like how Father Kotry visits Boyd. Also in the play Hamlet, there is a play within a play, and it was entitled Mousetrap, which is the title of the episode that we're discussing. I've also talked about the memento mori in reference to what we see in From. And memento mori is an underlying theme in the play Hamlet itself. Peep the usage of the skull. This is a direct connection, folks. Don't miss it. Also, Tabby cutting her hand on the broken glass and it being symbolic of her shattered reality reminds me of The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. This episode being named after a play, either the Shakespeare or Agatha Christie version, and The Glass Menagerie is compelling to say the least. And Donna making that pound of flesh reference, then us going right to the next scene where Clara was cooking the flesh, was confirmation to pay attention to these esoteric clues and how they relate to the character. Right after that, we get the scene where Tilly bears witness to Fatima eating that Colony House kimchi, which they used that scene to give Tilly the opportunity to mention her licking eggs during her pregnancy. Now, I've been speaking about the Vesica Pisces, the apple, the egg, and how it connects to fertility, and how we might see these things later on. And I've been saying this since last year. Now we have Tilly mentioning the egg in reference to her pregnancy, tying this concept directly to fertility, as I've stated all along. Not to mention her coming into Frumlin with a deck of tarot cards and sitting there fortune telling with the solitaire game after that first night of being there. In my episode 301 breakdown, I talked about how Nikki mentions pissing on the floor and how that is a reference to an ancient indigenous urinating ritual when planting and harvesting. And I find it quite confirming when in this episode we see Jade pissing by the tree while they were collecting the harvest. I was also the first to connect the show to the Tower Date ordeal that matches the conditions in the town known as the Starving Times in Jamestown, Virginia. Ethan actually references this in the kitchen with his father. He says,
"But what if someone finds her someday and they don't know who she is because all they find is bones?"
Stop! God damn it! Stop!
"But what if someone finds her someday and they don't know who she is because all they find is bones?"
Which is a direct reference to the clue that gave archaeological evidence and historical accounts of a cannibal nature on that fort. The discovery of the remains of a young girl named Jane in Jamestown provided the confirmation of what occurred during the Starving Time. And those were skeletal remains that were found that gave the archaeologists clues about what had possibly been going on with people eating each other. So that makes me wonder if they'll even get the food back, or maybe something bad could happen being that those statues were disturbed. Let's not forget that Christie's blood ended up on those pieces of metal when they pried the trap open to free her leg. They made it a point to show the teeth from the trap penetrating her leg in the blood. We also have Dale, who can't keep his mouth shut, and the girl who strong-armed Tien Chen. So that makes 3 of them at the very least candidates for erasure. And it might even possibly reveal a new threat out in the woods. Last year, in my How the Slow Walkers Came to Be video, I spoke about the possible family ties the Liu family could have to this place. I mentioned that many Chinese Americans who fought in the Civil War, and I showed images of the Chinese working on the railroad system. And now Jade is seeing a Puritan with a railroad spike in his eye, which really makes me scratch my head because railroad spikes weren't even invented until the 1800s. So I'm wondering how this guy would even have that. Some of my other observations were that Boyd is wanting to explore the capabilities of the talismans. We seen him do that with the talisman inside the RV, and we actually have been seeing Boyd carry a talisman around. So seeing him want to actually test the capabilities of the talismans by hanging them outside of a structure if a slow walker is on the inside is interesting for sure. Another thing I noticed is that Donna is still showing up everywhere with her hands in her pockets. Also, the fact that there's been no mention of Eloise between Henry and Tabby other than Henry saying his little girl. And back in episode 301, I noticed that one of the people in the crayon drawing was dressed like Jade when he came into town. And the way that Tabby looked at Henry when he was putting the bandage on her finger, coupled with the vibes between Victor and Tabby before she went through the bottle tree, gave me long lost family feels. I also noticed this water finding stick on the porch of Colony House in episode 302. I wonder what that could mean. Last thing I noticed was that the kimono Wraith appears to be dressed a little bit different, and she's appearing to Elgin without the music box. So what does she have to do with the music box, and why is she just haunting Elgin? Moreover, what was Tilly there for? These are just a few questions, and that was the esoteric breakdown for episode 303. I'm sure we're going to get more about the broken glass and timepiece, along with more egg references and fertility references. And my fertility clues led me to believe that there was going to be something between Julie and Tabitha that makes her come back. Well, we know now that Tabitha's in the ambulance and the ambulance is at the tree, so that one definitely falls short. However, I still think that there may be some sort of connection between Tabitha and Julie that might serve for a pivotal moment when she comes back. Shout out to my man Taryn Matheru for his tarot theory. And some of the names that I noticed hidden in the esoteric clues actually show up on his list of figures for his theory. I mean, our ways of looking at this show definitely go in different directions. However, we find ourselves meeting on the back roads quite often. Anyway, just a little something to think about while we wait on the next episode. That's all for my video today. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.